Hi guys and welcome. This is Jen Gata Siciliano, artist, memoir writer, bipolar psychiatric survivor, and your host of Not As Crazy As You Think podcast, the place that offers an alternative perspective on mental illness, highlighting creativity, non-conventional healing, and breaking on through to the other side. If you are ready for a new narrative on the mental realm that celebrates crazy and cool without penalty, then Not As Crazy As You Think is for you. Hello, this is Jen Gata Siciliano, your host of Not As Crazy As You Think podcast. Well, so much has happened within the last few weeks in AI, and I've just threw myself into the podcasts, YouTube, and article world that is still generated by human beings. And I'm really happy that I was able to at least douse myself in some of that because I know that's still reliable because it's really just a matter of time. And I saw this years ago. I had a shift into a shamanic journey unexpectedly. I had trouble getting out in 2017. And was, again, forcibly thrown into a hospital for my own good. But I knew what happened. It was the night that I saw the future. Here it is, all these years later, actually coming true. Some of us who are writers have a way of seeing certain things, especially if you have a breadth of unique experience, which I have because I had a near-death experience. So I feel as though I have seen the other side of death and then came back to tell about it. And people thought I was crazy. So having that set of, I will say, that data set gives me a very unique perspective. Okay? Something that I can call upon with trust and reliability in my own mind and heart, knowing that what I've seen is unique and that I can, and being an educated person before I went and had that experience, I knew that, I had learned a great deal of what they were telling me was wisdom in Western academia. But what I realized were either lies or highly biased centricity of thought that wasn't really applicable to most people on Earth. So this is the kind of conversation that I'm seeing with many people who are pushing the AI agenda onto us as though there is no way you're going to be happy without adapting. And of course we have to adapt, but we can adapt as a natural, right? Because there's going to be the naturals, there's going to be the cyborgs, and there's going to be the cosmists. I had discussed this at another time. It's a transhuman agenda. Basically, the deeper belief is that there is no soul. So there is a choice that we all have to make in this, okay? Do you want to continue believing in that set of values that links you to this idea that you and your consciousness move on to another location after you die? And a lot of people could just throw this away as, oh gosh, it's all unproven faith and delusion, as someone like Sam Harris would say. But you know what? The only thing that's been delusional in my life since my near-death experience, when I knew this to be true, this reality, this soulistic reality, is everything that everyone has been trying to force down my throat as truth. And now we're putting all that stuff into the AI. So I guess I just want to point out a few things that I think are topics that we have to responsibly discuss. Because what is it that we want our world, our new world, to reflect? I always thought the technological singularity was predicted by futurist and Google AI engineer Ray Kurzweil. And I come across material today realizing that it actually came from this science fiction writer, Vernor Vinge, in his short essay called Technological Singularity. And it was written in 1993 when I graduated college. So again, I went to India in 94. So I had there was enough behind me. I mean, the internet wasn't even used by any people in my graduating class to find our research. That wasn't a thing. And I will tell you about this particular essay. It's mind-blowing, because something that was envisioned this long ago, 1993, and I never came across it, even though I still was into things that were, I guess dystopian, technological, stories at the time. I never came across this. And yet I had something of a vision too that would have encompassed some of this. So, I mean, I would like to think of that area where we can tap into that sense of, possibilities, the realm of possibilities as this ethereal space that, because of the subtleties of the thoughts that we have and all the reality of our world, we can access information there. And it doesn't sound crazy anymore, does it? If it's a natural intelligence database that's invisible, why is it only that the AI intelligence database that's invisible normally acceptable now by almost everybody? Because the smart guys are telling us that that's true because that's what they've created. Well, there's been many smart people in the past who've discussed spiritual realms and how to access those spiritual realms, okay? And if people do have a practice in which they do it themselves, they know that this is a real thing, okay? It's not just a made-up fantasy. So I want to rely on natural intelligence as long as I possibly can. Hopefully I can do that to the end of the course of my life. I don't know what's going to happen to my son. He's only 16, but he's smack dab in the middle of this complete overhaul of society that we are going to see probably within the next 10 years. I mean, they're bringing it down to 5 years, with this Chat GPT explosion that just happened. And it's funny because today was the beginning of the Global Pod Fest 2023. So I got online with a few people that were discussing Chat GPT in the podcast realm. And I want to start with this because I just think it's actually funny. I mean, I had to laugh, but I'm thinking to myself, this is exactly why I can't see me using it all that much, because most of the stuff I'm talking about isn't out there. And that's the beauty, right, of being a person who can fancy herself as being a writer with new ideas, right? Those ideas aren't circulating that much out there, so I can't really pull from the database set that is already there. Meanwhile, these database sets that they've trained all of this material on is already outdated. There's nothing current. There's nothing current like March 2023 that are in these models. So it's, to me, a copy. It's a copy so far, okay? But I want to share with you. So he put in, I guess, just a general, mental health and podcasting or something. And he put in with the tone, cynical, and the writing style conversational. And I just have to read this to you because I just think it's the funniest thing. But it really does illustrate my point. And I know that so many people are online and, all over the place sharing this as well. This is what we put into Chat GPT and look what came out. But I think we do need to discuss this, right? Because I didn't know much until I started hearing all that input from people who are experimenting with this stuff. And for many who aren't experimenting with it yet, just know what was coming down our path, which is a shitload of inaccuracies, loss of reasoning, loss of critical thinking, loss of, this is, to me, a crime. I was an English teacher, and I'm a writer, and I have been really, really fundamentally harmed because the field that claims that they are so highly scientific is based on the most problematic evidence-based research in all of the medical sciences. And it has harmed me to the point where, humans are defending their wrongdoings, aka psychiatrists, and putting the full blame on any patient who doesn't like their treatments, instead of just saying, okay, well, it's not for you, it doesn't work for everybody. But they want this to be true. So you see it in the human world. What's going to happen if these AI entities that one day become embodied, right? Like being able to be immersed inside an embodiment so that they can move around within our environment. They're not just like strung up on machines, in our homes. What's to say that they wouldn't also inflict harm? If us humans are doing it to each other, they're learning from us. We have not perfected our society and then started the database. We have a flawed society beyond reason, okay, filled with craziness. And then all the people who are labeled crazy are usually the ones that are sensitive to that. I can't see this being a good thing. But anyway, let me just share with you what the GPT said in this cynical tone about mental health podcasting. Oh, great, another podcast for mental health. As if we don't already have enough people out there trying to give advice on how to deal with our problems. But hey, maybe this one will actually be helpful. Podcasting can be a great tool for people struggling with mental health issues. It allows them to hear from experts in the field, as well as from others who have been through similar struggles. Plus, listening to someone talk about their experiences can be more engaging and relatable than reading a book or article. But let's be real here. There are probably just as many unqualified people out there hosting mental health podcasts as there are actual experts. So how do we know who to trust? One way is to look for podcasts that feature licensed therapists or mental health professionals as guests. They're more likely to give sound advice and guidance than some random influencer who claims to have all the answers. Okay. Fuck you, GPT. Okay? Because this is the problem. There is no nuance. There is no nuance of human interpretation of human. I am an entire entity that's been walking in this lifetime for 51 years, okay? There is nothing that a qualified mental health professional is going to offer someone else that totally undermines what I can offer as a person with lived experience and also dealing with a very harmful system. Okay, so right there, the fact that all of this information that is now like new and talked about and, coming out from under the veil of oppression and suppression, people don't want to hear the patients with lived experience that have negative things to say about psychiatry because we want answers, right? We want to save all those people who are suffering. I'm right there with you. It's just, I knew this could always be a problem. There's so much information right now on us patients that all of this work that we've done within these last 5 years, I would say approximately, could fall completely into yesterday's news, oblivion, nobody gives a shit because now everybody's listening to Chat GPT. So it's a very wild world we're entering. I mean, that's all I could say on that. Within these last few weeks, there's been like 20 new AI powered tools that have landed on the scene. Everything from, Harvey AI, an AI powered legal advisor, to Doctopus AI, which creates compelling slides for your presentations. It's everything. It's everywhere. It's being completely integrated to the point where there is no conversation on it. And I have been seeing that for a while. I knew that there was going to be no conversation. But even people like Sam Altman, who's the CEO of OpenAI, who is the responsible entity for ChatGPT, said it himself on a wonderful podcast interview with Lex Friedman, who is definitely becoming one of my big faves. He said that he wishes more people would be entering the conversation. In the same interview, he also admits that he's unable to empathize with what and how AGI is going to affect many people. And this is what the Silicon Valley dudes, need to understand that. And I didn't understand this either, growing up in America, having a middle class upbringing, a decent education. I went over to India. My mind practically exploded because I was like, what? I could not compute. Okay. And many of these Silicon Valley dudes are Indian. So they have come from, a land of less. And I say that because it was absolutely mind-blowing to me. And yet I know that so many of them understand that aspect. And many of them it's one of the reasons why Imad Mustaq, he says, the guy who's in charge of Stability AI, who released Stable Diffusion, the AI art program, basically, that's why he made it open source. And I understand that because it's like you figure, well, put it into the hands of everybody, even anybody, that you would assume that, oh, well, why would they need it? It is a democratizing approach. And even Sam Altman was, asking Lex, like, oh, should we open source it? There is a understanding that if you do just put it out there, I guess it has a chance to evolve with the expectations and the heart and the intentions of more of humanity rather than just a fixed few, right? But to tell you the truth, the reason why I feel compelled to have these conversations is because I know most people are not talking about this, okay? And yes, I'm involved with it. I'm interested in it. But I was discussing and talking about this stuff a long time ago where people couldn't even hear a conversation out of my mouth because they thought I was going into some kind of episode. And it's so sad to me that I'm looking at this essay. This technological singularity was written in 1993. I'm like, am I the only one on this planet? But clearly I'm not. I'm just not in these circles. Okay. I'm an artist. I'm a teacher. Now it's affecting me clearly because of AI art, but it was affecting me a long time ago because of the psychiatric institution. They're one of the first fields that was embracing AI so rapidly. And yet, what I love is something that just came out by a machine learning algorithm stating that no, psychiatry cannot be proven through neuroscience. I'm like, please, I thought the AI was going to be after all the patients and stuff, putting us away. This was my vision. But now it's disproving psychiatry. So it's actually kind of funny. I'm going to give you that information. The overview was written by Peter Simons, who's an academic researcher in psychology. And as a science writer, he does write for Mad in America, and so would have come upon this critical psychiatric research. And the article is Machine Learning Fails to Identify Depression Based on Neurobiology. So basically, machine learning is used in artificial intelligence to investigate complex phenomenon. They figure, putting as many variables into a system and trying to find some kind of pattern correlation helps determine things that maybe humans cannot identify on their own just yet. So they thought that using machine learning would help in better identifying which neurobiological measures are important in how to predict psychiatric illness. So the accuracy is basically non-existent, okay? It's just not happening. Now, they've tried single type of neurobiological measures, such as brain scans, okay, to predict psychiatric diagnosis, and that never really has worked. So they decided to come up with this machine learning algorithm to throw in every conceivable neurobiological measure that they've ever thought of in order to predict depression. And the results were very underwhelming. And basically, compared to social and environmental variables, such as childhood maltreatment or lack of social supports, which help people predict 70% greater accuracy, the other models that were just an ML models, the accuracies were as low as 48%. So, I mean, this is wonderful. This is actually really great news in the realm of AI and psychiatry, because they may go a little slower now. The comments by Nils Winter at the University of Münster, Germany, who was involved with the research, wrote, the fact that we cannot find meaningful neurobiological differences on the level of the individual for one of the most prevalent mental disorders should give us pause. Love that. Love that. Yes. Pause, please. It's not working. Looking for biological associations is not the way to go. And then they go further. The researchers mention further, since there is no established formal theory of the neurobiology of depression, it is uncertain which neuroimaging methods will be best suited to capture clinically relevant information. But none of these measures, even when combined, could give any really predictive value. So this is really, really interesting. And then they write, how biological precision psychiatry can deliver more accurate individualized prediction to improve treatment and patient care remains a central open question at this point. Yeah, it should have been open a long time ago because you're going down the wrong path, people. That's the bottom line. And, one of the areas in AI development in healthcare is the digital medicine. I know I've brought that up before, but that is where they keep going full steam. And the DSM in this last edition, they really pushed the neurobiological influences in these disorders, which are not even able to be proven by AI. They're not even able to be supported by AI. So it's really interesting. I mean, it's like falling apart on itself as we are moving into this new world. So I feel there's a slight hope there because my big fear was having all of these records and all of this data and all of this information that they so creatively collect from all of these mental patients, and myself in there included, to tell stories to the AI. You know what I mean? Because that's what this is. And the AI, as we see, will just fill in the holes. Like it doesn't register that it doesn't know. It just makes shit up. So whatever. I mean, this is the world we're going to be living in, and I have to come to terms with it. But I do believe a lot of people in the AI industry that is all embracing, all loving this idea that they're going to be in some kind of, fantasy VR world at all times with all of their needs being met and the happiness quotient going through the rooftop because of this. I mean, it basically, what they seem to want is just consistent addiction to getting all their dopamine fixes. I mean, we know, it was just in the Washington Post, a decent opinion article, how social media is devastating teens' mental health. Here's what parents can do. So, okay, things that are being suggested that the parents can do are things like create spaces free from screens, talk to kids and make a plan with them, help teams approach technology mindfully, delay social media use, all this stuff until they're a certain age. All this stuff that sounds completely reasonable because we as human beings are trying to figure out what's good for us. Meanwhile, the AI guys, okay, are moving 100,000 times faster than the rest of us can even catch up to knowing how to handle social media, okay, with all of these ideas that they have. One thing I will point out, I think it's a really interesting podcast. It's with Daniel Fregella. It's called AI in Business Podcast. And he recently had a few interesting people on his program who were discussing all these technologies and generative AI and human reward systems, which I found to be extremely interesting. But the way he's talking, it's like he's just so thrilled with this new immersive experience in the vein of a younger person. And I say that because there's nothing, wrong with his youth. It's just that as you get older in this world, you are able to understand more about your experience on this earth. And all of the mundane things in life can suddenly make sublime sense. So it's this sense of, rushing or needing or wanting or desiring that very youthful, explosive kind of instigator behind this. Okay, it's this need for more, this need for faster, this need for more instant gratification. What makes us think, if we know that it causes, it's definitely related to mental illness today, what makes us think that if we go 100% down that road, like faster than we've ever done anything before in human existence, that's a good thing? I mean, does anybody out there, I'm speaking to the world, hopefully, that somebody may come across my words and say, yeah, I get you. I think we're moving too fast. I mean, I just don't understand. There is nothing in place to help the transition be better for those who are going to be most affected by these changes. I'm going back to Daniel Fagello because one of the things he mentions is that there's scenarios of power. And there's going to be the escapists who are powerless. They're users who will be living like kind of in the audience of one. Okay, it's fulfilling all their needs, all their even needs for community and love with AI generated personalities with no interaction whatsoever. And they're going to completely disconnect from the objective world. And, they're solely dependent on others. They're just basically a resource drain. Then there's the influencers. They're mostly powerless in the future. See, some of us we rose to this level where we feel like we're influencing, right? Even if we don't have a lot of followers, we know that the potential is always there. And it's interesting because on his website, when he discusses this stuff a little bit more thoroughly, he brings a lot of this up through all of these podcast talks he has with all these very interesting people. But he writes in quotes under this, might be an aspiring rock star, social media star, entertainer, or artist. And I'm thinking, yeah, this is what I'm worried about. The artists class. Okay. And that includes all the arts, the creatives. I'm worried about us. We're the ones that already got slapped with labels. Now we're going to be thrown into this world. I mean, there's not going to be a place for us. We're basically going to be living in immersed in multiplayer AI augmentation, VR games, collaborating with team members and sharpening their skills in a world where consequences have little impact. We're nearly completely disconnected. But some of us stay connected in human worlds, but mostly through like this arbitrary niche domain. And there's a small chance that we might have some kind of discovery or contribution, but we're probably a resource drain and mostly dependent on others. So the only people left who will be powerful, okay? See, this is the sad thing that we're moving towards. We're moving towards this era where we think this is okay to divide these groups of people up. Okay, when I tell you the most of the world are powerless as it is, okay? And not in an escapist world of the AI future, in worlds of poverty and lack, okay, all throughout the world. I mean, you might as well just shoot them all now. I mean, I know my words can be could sound very harsh, but this is what I'm hearing when I hear these people talk. So naturally, the powerful people, they'll be completely immersed in AI augmented VR, okay, virtual reality. But their work connects to real team members and real business events, finances in the world, right? So you might have an engineer working on the hardware, software that runs the VR world. A nurse or a surgeon seems to still fit into that group. They have some awareness of the ongoings in the physical world, but their direct involvement in a shared, productive, subjected world for others will help them connect. And they'll be consistently working on the problems of the future, right? The better ones, the mostly self-reliant, somewhat contributory people, and they have enough productive capability and connection to the real world to uphold their own interests. Well, good for them. Isn't that nice that we're creating a world of the future where only one type of person can be successful and have their own interests? I mean, I don't understand it. Now, this could be totally not what happens. This is we're getting to the point where predictability is going to start running low. We're not going to be able to predict. We're going to pass a certain point where things are not going to be predictable because we have no involvement with it. AI will have the full decision making. I mean, to me, it sounds like we're closing in on major dystopias. Disinformation is just one thing that's going to happen. Okay. No one's going to believe anybody anymore. There's going to be so much distrust of what we see. We're not going to be able to access anything as factual anymore. And that's been a thing of the past for a few years now. So I guess we're preparing ourselves for that. What are the values we want to preserve and support as we move into this new world? How do we contribute to society? It's not just individual needs and wants that are being fulfilled that betters a society. We have to think of societal values too. How does the larger group work together? It's not about just a closed loop of self-fulfillment and satisfying our own desires. It's sad. I can't help but think that totalitarianism can easily grow very strongly in an AI world. Because largely in totalitarianism, it's just two groups of people, right? The rulers and the ruled. What if the ruling class were robots? The people who are ruled then are the psychologically regressed group. Will be living in delusions, okay? How do you induce a population to take this on? You have to reorganize them and manipulate their collective feelings. This is exactly what will happen and what it's happening already. Kill off the mind. The more confused we are, the less capable we will be of dealing with the crisis when it comes full force. So right now, there's little reflection, there's little conversation. People don't take the time to question, what do we want as a society? And that means everybody, not just the people who are making the decisions to create the stuff. We're the members of society, everyone else. We should all be in this conversation because if not, we will be fed repetition of stimuli and will grow to be more and more isolated as we're tamed like wild animals. Okay? We will relinquish our own capacity to guide our own lives. Now, I know this as being a 100% possibility because it's what many people have experienced in being forcibly treated through psychiatry. When you are forced on antipsychotics, you don't have the chance to determine your own life anymore. I mean, they basically tell you that too. They think it's the mental illness, but when you're first put on these things, that's the drugs that are doing this. So it's a devastation of the beauty and the grace and the spirit and the power that is within all of us as human beings. To have that taken away in the name of somebody else is now in charge, everyone's in for a rude awakening. Everything that was sacred up until now could now be in some simple gadget. And everything we can intellectually perform right now will be seen as stupid and meaningless as we move forward. Many of us will be out of a vocation. And only if we can do something a machine cannot do will we be relevant. Okay? So I guess as I prepare for the AI impact, I need to connect to natural intelligence. I will give it to Sam Altman again. Did not know, but he apparently his OpenAI has funded the largest UBI study, Universal Basic Income Study, which is so important. And I don't know how it can practically be put to use or can be systematically organized in this country because of our addiction to capitalistic structures. But if we're able to prove that AI can figure things out and make things better, I mean, eliminating poverty would certainly be the absolute important baseline for where we can all start in having some kind of equality, because many of us will not move forward in the VR world. Many of us will choose nature. Many of us will choose living off the grid. Many of us will choose, the simple world, right? And it will seem as though we're going back in time, possibly. But I mean, maybe it's because I can't say I'm nearing the end of my life. I mean, I might be healthy for another 40 years. Who knows? But the thing is, I'm on the other side. I'm not looking to engage that much in this reality, because I feel that the more I engage, the more humanity I can lose. And I'm not willing to do that. I'm just regaining my humanity as I get these chemicals out of my system. I've been chemically restrained my whole life. I don't want to be technologically restrained. All of these AI guys, okay, and I say guys, women are in there too, and everyone in between, you're all naive, okay? You keep saying how much better life is going to be, how much better life is going to be. Well, how are we going to get to the better if we're not dealing with the solutions of the problems right now? We're not preparing for the future of loss of work, okay? We are not, and what does that mean? Like, oh, it's okay not to feed your family? Like, how much unemployment could the government give out before a universal basic income is the right way to go? We need to make sure that the goal is for humans to have a better life, not just for the AI to have, everything and us just like get plugged in. Now, a lot of people who are discussing job loss believe that the only people that will lose their jobs are those that refuse to work with AI, because the nature of work will change, okay? And again, that might be all well and good for everybody who, thinks that their job won't be taken and because they've learned to love their job and they think they're very good at their job and all this. It's an ego thing. I get it. Your jobs are going to get lost too, because what on earth will AI have the need for computer programmers if they could do it all itself? I mean, let's get real, people. Okay? You might have lived in in luxury for the last couple decades while I was pinned down by chemical restraint. But I took classes with you guys. Okay? And you were lucky. You chose this field that exploded. Okay? You had a lot of success. It's not going to last forever. And then what? You're just going to plug in? You better hope for a UBI too, or that you saved enough money. Now, one of the people that this guy, Daniel Fagella, interviewed on his AI in Business podcast was Elon Kazi of Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Dakota, who's chief data officer at Blue Cross Blue Shield. And he was talking about maximizing the patient experience with AI, right? And I've been like kind of half listening to this bullshit for a while because, they consider me a lifelong patient. And some areas are definitely in AI diagnostics outperforming board-certified practitioners, okay? So this is a reality, but certainly, thank goodness, not in psychiatry. The biggest area where AI diagnostics has won is anything that can create a picture, right? So radiology is huge. Retinopathy in eyes, many cases of accuracy help with this diagnosis and diagnoses like that. So now we're talking, again, white-collar automation, okay? And people are concerned, but what he's trying to say is that right now, because it's really about people, right? It's about health. It's about if you make a mistake, someone can die or be hurt. The AI is used as a tool for the professionals to help them better make a diagnosis. But in time, it probably will take over, okay? Now, the drug development space is taking off, as he said. It's accelerating with the digital medicine. That's clear. And, like I said, I've been dealing with being on the other end of being worried about AI taking over. And I've had so many visions inside the hospital, like who was an AI and who was talking to me and who was recording me. And it's not all, again, psychosis is a beautiful thing because it's not all craziness. It's almost like a willingness to see a new landscape, a new background, a new virtual reality, if you will. Teach it to me, natural intelligence. Show me what it is I need to see. rather than just going inside an artificial intelligence. If you go inside that space, I'm not encouraging everybody to have psychosis and to seek it out. Definitely not. It is a disruptive experience, okay, unless you know how to control it. But all this time, this industry has been so dead on, so interested in convincing people like me who hear voices that we are just nuts and that our functionality is faulty. And there's no proof on their part to say, to show that this is the case. And yet we're going to be the ones connected to natural intelligence when all you guys are plugged in, because you won't be able to hear the natural intelligence anymore. But that's when we went out, the humans. He also interviewed Dr. Francesca Rossi, who I found was also very interesting. And she wants to bring human values into a radically changing future, right? She's a fellow and AI ethics global leader at IBM and president of the American Association for Artificial Intelligence. So she seems to think that the trend is to make AI collab with humans rather than this autonomous system just being out on their own, okay? So it has to be reliable if it's going to be our co-pilot. And it's not desirable to just be in a fantasy world, okay? No, it's not a good thing for humanity. We know humans well enough, right? That's just not a good way to use your time and to thrive. So it seems as though the trend and the need is to use AI to augment our intelligence and creativity, right? That seems to be where most people want this to go. But she does speak of problems with truthfulness and accuracy. How are you going to rely on everything that the AI tells you, right? He had a lot of interesting people within this segment. And I could go on and on about it, but I am running out of time. So basically, it's no more business as usual. The change is coming in only decades, and it will not resemble anything. Our world will not resemble anything from the past. Most of us can say that through the course of time, we've all pretty much had similar lives to our grandparents. Even if they came, say, if you live in America and they came from, the big story of Americans is that, where did you come from? Where is your family from? When did you come to America? That's always the story. Where are your roots? And I could still go back into my roots and say, well, when I visited Italy and I saw how they lived there, it was similar to where I was brought up. I mean, of course, there's a lot of things that are different, but in many, many ways, it was something that resembled a human experience, which we're not going to have anymore. So keep your chin up during this time period. I'm positive because, I entered the Chat GPT podcast meetup because I stated, I'm in this world, okay? I'm in this world. I mean, I could sit under a rock and I could pretend that I don't exist in this world. But the best way to exist in this world is to be a part of it, but not let it overtake you. And that's always been my way. But after being so plugged into their chemical treatment, psychiatry's chemical treatment of my brain, I don't want anything else doing things to my brain or determining what I should be seeing and what's normal. And I don't want a new normal. I'm coming back to my old normal. And I think it's important for me to learn the technology just so that I'm aware of how it works and what it does. And if I do have to use it, I'll use it, just like I use everything else. But I am going to call out for a movement that is all about getting humans as healthy as possible so that if we want to stay natural, we can do it by either growing our own food or growing our own medicine or allowing nature to dictate our lives. So for all you who are on my team, the human team, the natural human purist team, you know what? I'm not worried. They want to make us scared. They want to say you will not survive in this new era unless you succumb to this. And I don't believe that's true at all because I've seen other areas of the world Okay. And I do believe in natural intelligence, and I have connected to that natural intelligence, and it's even outside the planet, it's outside of this dimension. It's so huge and beautiful. So like, I don't want people to forget that. So as I talk about AI, I'm just going to remind people of that place that's called the human mind and to trust it. And if you do feel disconnected at this point in history, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's the good thing. Maybe it'll be the rise of the mad class, right? The rise of the mad creative class coming out to save everyone from AI. But, I also would love for it to be that I could coexist with the robots next to me. I can't stand the ones that follow me around the supermarket. I mean, I curse them out. They probably have so much data on me. That's probably, gelling with all the data they already have on me about being a bipolar. But I have to laugh at it because in the end, I'm willing to die. I'm not worried about living forever on this planet. It's the last thing I want. I want to cross over. I want to see the other side again. Hopefully the people I love will join me and we'll have our souls on the other side. I just lost a cousin this morning, and I hope to see you someday, Sylvan Baroni. I'll be there soon. And that's just a shout out to the souls that leave so that we can one day rejoin them. I believe in it. I do believe in it. It's a subtle realm, but it's a real realm, and it's going to there's nothing that feels more real than when you cross over. And I sometimes wish I stayed there and not returned to this unfolding dystopia as we speak. I just appreciate that you joined me to listen to another round of me ranting about AI. And there's not much more I could say about it, except keep the faith in humanity. Thanks for listening to Not As Crazy As You Think, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And remember, mental health is attainable for anyone, especially those labeled with mental illness. Until next time, peace out.